As far back as the late 19th century, Atlantic City has always had a love affair with the arts. Said to be an ocean of promotion, business owners in Atlantic City were always looking for a way to draw in the most visitors. Since the beginning, art was always part of the mix. In 1897, an artist by the name of Philip McCord created a hauntingly tragic sand sculpture of a drowned mother and her baby who washed up on shore. The display, cast up by the shore, shows a mother with sea-swept hair clasping a baby in her arms. To put this in context, shipwrecks were not uncommon at the turn of the century, so the image of a marooned mother and her child was especially poignant for visitors. The display was thought to be the first instance of artistic sand sculpture in Atlantic City, the birthplace. The popularity of sand sculpting led to artists getting paid for their art in the form of tips from spectators. Tourists lined the boardwalk rail, nicknamed railbirds, to watch the works in progress, tossing coins to the artists as they worked. Even nearby hotels got in on the craze, printing postcards bearing the sculptures as a ploy to draw in tourists. For close to 50 years, from 1897 to 1944, sand sculpting had a home on the Atlantic City boardwalk. New Jersey Avenue and the boardwalk. The Garden Pier was a spectacle in its time. Opening on July 19, 1913, the centerpiece of the pier was the B.F. Keith's Theater, which hosted dozens of celebrities, performers, and vaudeville acts. At a cost of $1 million, the red tiled roof, style of the buildings, and the beautifully landscaped gardens gave the pier a formal appearance which attracted a rather upscale crowd. It was also home to the first Miss America pageant in 1921. However, its uptown location both placed it away from all of the activity that was going on downtown, and that made it less commercially successful in the years to come.
The belief, the dream, the goal. Make Atlantic City the art center of the world. Atlantic City Art Association was formed in 1925 and believed in this dream. Back then, they knew the beauty that the art could and will bring to the city. Millions of tourists stop by annually and thousands of locals lived here in these 48 blocks. People from all walks of life could stop and see the beauty the city brings. The next generation will grow, precede their predecessors. Each generation is getting better and better. With so many art projects, the city will grow like a flourishing flower, spreading its beauty, not just in Atlantic City, but the entire world.
Then came what's known as Black Tuesday. It was just a mere 11 days after the municipal art exhibition began. It was the stock market crash of October 29, 1929. It was said that the Wall Street investors then traded some 16 million shares on the New York Stock Exchange in just a single day. And it caused the loss of billions of dollars. Because of this, panic was in the air in Atlantic City. This town was founded and built on tourism dollars, and the Great Depression put a temporary end to vacation. For 10 years, nearly all of the major hotels along the boardwalk were operating in the red. Also, 10 of the 14 local banks were forced to close, bringing financial ruin to investors. The city's government was unable to make payroll, and the issuance of script money was how many employees were paid. Merchants who were set script had to hold it until the city was able to redeem it, which was usually many months. Many jobs were lost. Homes had foreclosed. Businesses, both small and large, pushed to the brink of extinction.
Then, to make matters worse, Prohibition was repealed in 1933. To those literally anywhere else in the country, this was a good thing. This meant that the sale and consumption of alcohol was no longer considered illegal. To Atlantic City, however, this meant we were no longer the go-to destination for alcohol. In the 14 years that Prohibition existed, we were considered a wet town, meaning that even though booze was technically illegal, most officials would look the other way as everyone in town profited from it in the long run. With the end of Prohibition, that meant we no longer had a competitive advantage over other major cities, as it was now legal to sell alcohol anywhere in the United States. By the end of the 30s, Atlantic City's per capita debt was not only the highest for its class of 30 to 100,000 year-round residents, but it was higher than that of any other city in the country, period. Who could focus on arts and culture when thousands were living in dire conditions, not knowing when or where their next meal may come from?
By the time the Great Depression ended in 1939, a few short years later, we were called to war, and in like fashion, Atlantic City answered the call. Dubbed Camp Boardwalk, hotels such as the Traymore, the Claridge, the Haddon Hall, and the Marlborough Blenheim were turned into hospitals and training facilities for the Army, meaning that hotels had to turn away paying customers in order to help with the war effort. On September 14, 1944, the city was rocked by the Great Atlantic Hurricane. 86-mile winds took hold, causing ultimate destruction in its wake. Heinz Pier at Massachusetts Avenue in the Boardwalk was completely washed out by the storm. Residents of Brigantine were completely marooned, as the only wooden bridge connecting the island to the rest of the civilization was destroyed by the storm. Areas of the inlet were completely decimated, as seen in these photos. Prior to the storm, the boardwalk stretched past Ventnor and into Margate and Longport. That drastically changed as storm damage pummeled the boardwalks, and both towns chose not to rebuild afterwards. 2.5 miles of the Atlantic City portion of the boardwalk were lost completely. Sadly, this also meant that the elaborate sand sculptures that had been a tourist draw since the turn of last century. 1944 marked the end of an era in terms of sand art in Atlantic City being a popular seaside attraction. From that point on, the city banned the creation of new sand sculptures, no longer seeing the need or the benefit of them.
The League of South Jersey Artists was formed to foster knowledge and appreciation of art. After the hurricane, the League got back together to help Atlantic City's new and next big art project. These were members of the league who helped with the exciting project. The year was 1954. Atlantic City was in the midst of a centennial celebration. Garden Pier was acquired by the city's government, who demolished and rebuilt it in time for Atlantic City's centennial celebration. Garden Pier's new name was Garden Pier Civic Center. The pier contained the Atlantic City Arts Center. Also within the pier, it was an exhibit, a mesmerizing fountain, and also hosted many concerts to come.
Let's talk about Linda Nesbitt. She was the president of the Art Center when it started, and under her leadership, the Art Center flourished over the first 5 years, bringing much publicity to the area and much recognition to the art community from a cultural standpoint. The success of this public art showcase did not go unseen and garnered much praise, causing the city commissioner at the time, Richard Jackson, to pen this letter in February 1960 to Linda Nesbitt, highlighting that he repeats the endorsement of the mayor and other commissioners and pledges his support of the Art Center's objectives, as he believes that everyone appreciates art in various forms. Now, moving on to another civic-minded leader in the cultural arts of Atlantic City, Florence Violet Miller, one of the founding members that helped to build the Atlantic City Art Center and became the center's executive director in 1962. Florence Violet Miller put in that work and did her thing for the community, and her efforts made her a champion of the arts and culture. Listen, so much so that she earned the nickname Atlantic County's Mother of Cultural Arts. Like, she fought against the tearing down and moving of monuments and extending gambling onto the Garden Pier. In 1969, she founded an organization dedicated to the promotion and the preservation of the arts and culture in the area, called the Atlantic City Fine Arts Commission. She went on to be its commission director. As Miller was director, the commission created and managed the annual Boardwalk Art Show, which was held annually on Father's Day weekend. The show ran from New Jersey Avenue, going down the boardwalk, where many artists came from far and wide to display their artwork. And needless to say, this exhibit drew thousands of visitors each year, including the likes of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor in 1964. The show had a good run. It lasted for 30 years, ending in the 1980s. Miller herself was the director of the commission until 1981, and then after became chairwoman emeritus after that. Now let's talk about someone who's known as the world's fastest sketch artist. His name was Louis Levine, and he was actually from Philadelphia, but he owned and operated a staple in Atlantic City for over 40 years on Boardwalk and Virginia Avenue, called Louis Artist Village. This man practiced his artistic speed since he was a child, and eventually got so fast that he boasted in doing a sketch in just 3 minutes. Truly awesome, right? And with his staple, he regularly employed young up-and-coming then artists like Donna Elias, who was still in high school then.
He was a flamboyant, charismatic guy, very outspoken, big personality, but he was also an iconic art legend on the boardwalk, and he painted different places around the city. He painted the boardwalk scene, he painted the Back Bay scene, he did many things with the art world in Atlantic City. So I was happy to be a part of it because I was young, up and coming artist, and it kind of helped me segue into my future career in the art world.
In November 1968, the first annual Black Art Festival of Atlantic City took place. Held in the original Pennsylvania Avenue School, the festival was sponsored by the Atlantic City Citizens Committee for the support of Black culture, focusing on Black art. It was the first of its kind in this area and will serve as a template for future exhibitions to come.
By the 1970s, Atlantic City had indeed fallen on hard times. Thanks to airline travel, vacationers now had options on where to go. For some, in the same amount of time it would take to get to Atlantic City, you could now take a plane to Miami. Once again, for the second time in our city's history, we needed a lifeline. Something that would restore our reputation as the queen of resorts. Lifeline? Casino gambling. The casino referendum was passed in 1976. It came with the promise of jobs, higher wages, and solutions to cure the woes of the city. In order to do so, several of the city's old, formerly majestic hotels, which have since fallen into disrepair, had to be knocked down to make way for glittering, shiny new casinos. Between the years of 1977 and 1981, everything from the boardwalk to Pacific Avenue was in the midst of massive reconstruction. With that change came the closing of the famed Louis Artist Village in 1977. The village had been a staple at Virginia Avenue and the boardwalk since 1941. Through it all, the arts still carried on. In 1978, the Art Center also celebrated its 25th anniversary Silver Jubilee. For 25 years, the Art Center was the main conduit for all things artistic, related not only to Atlantic City, but Atlantic County as a whole. That same year, the city celebrated its 18th annual Boardwalk Art Show. The show was so successful that organizers could offer a trip to Europe as an award for the art contest's grand prize winner. On the other side of town, away from the boardwalk, at the foot of the Atlantic City Expressway, there laid a 40-foot wooden sculpture created by Seattle artist Brooke Larson. Nicknamed the Corn Crib by locals because of its resemblance to a farm building, the abstract sculpture consisted of rust-colored boards, fiberglass, and wooden poles, assembled in a triangle formation. Its intent was to represent a meeting point between ocean and forest. The $20,000 sculpture stirred an immense amount of controversy between residents and officials alike. First, over whether or not it should be referred to as art at all, and second, because the cost was not paid for by the city, but instead with taxpayer dollars.
As the year approached 1980, Atlantic City was about to enter its golden age for casino gaming. State legislation required for the casinos to set aside 1% of total construction costs for art-related projects. However, it was very broad, as they could use it for direct art like painting and sculptures, but also for architectural enhancements and landscaping. But then, in 1981, things came to a grinding halt. A mysterious fire ruined the Atlantic City Art Center. It is believed that the fire started under the boardwalk. Ironically, a separate fire had broken out a few days earlier, destroying much of Million Dollar Pier at Arkansas Avenue in the boardwalk. No one could say for certain whether or not the two fires were related. The damage to the art center resulted in between 300 to 400 paintings, numerous sculptures, sketches, and other artworks were on display at the time of the fire. When interviewed by reporters, Florence Valor Miller was in complete despair, watching her entire life's work go up in flames. The building also housed artifacts from many of the old hotels prior to their demolition. But the spirit of art in Atlantic City would not die. Art events still carried on in the city even though they no longer had a permanent home. The Atlantic City Spring Festival of the Arts took place in May 1982 at Brighton Park. If nothing else, Atlantic City has a long history of resilience. Florence Miller and other city officials were determined that Garden Pier and the Art Center would be rebuilt better than ever.
And so it was. The pier was completed in record time and officially reopened on May 2nd, 1983. However, this time, it would be renamed the Florence Valor Miller Art Center to honor her years of tireless dedication to creating a vibrant art community in Atlantic City. The Art Center picked up where it left off, hosting a variety of shows dedicated to the work of artists both local and national. In 1986, Atlantic City native Atilio Sinagua held a significant exhibit titled Fragments of Atlantic City, highlighting the transition of his hometown during the early years of casino expansion. Returning to Atlantic City in 1968, he was heartbroken to find that the town he left was no longer. Through his artwork, he began documenting what he saw. In addition, the annual Black Art Show, sponsored by the Atlantic City chapter of Lynx Incorporated, was in its 19th season by 1988. Held yearly during the Black History Month, the purpose of the show was, and still remains, to introduce the public to the talents of young and established artists.
You've got mail.
You know, with time, change is inevitable. In the 90s, change would come overdue from the lack of attention over the years given to the Garden Pier after the 1944 hurricane. Once the city decided to take action, they thought the repairs would take only a year, but quickly discovered that it would take a lot longer than what was expected. 4 years to be exact, in which the entire time the Garden Pier was closed. July 1994, Garden Pier reopened. It showcased various exhibits by famous local artists, the likes of Donna Elias, bringing a reverberated sense of pride back to the city. By the 1990s, the Boardwalk Art Show was still continuing, but on its last legs. After being a staple on the Boardwalk for over 30 years, having brought in artists from far and wide, the Boardwalk Art Show was shut down in 1998.
I'm not really sure why it stopped. I know at one point, I think it was part of the city budget. Again, Ms. Miller, that was something that she advocated for very strongly.
After almost 40 years, Florence Viola Miller had retired as executive director of the Art Center that bore her name in 1999.
When Florence Valora Miller stepped down from the Atlantic City Art Center in 1999 and then passed away only a few years later in 2002, it left a huge void in the Atlantic City art scene, and the city had lost its focal champion. But then, who would step up to the plate to take over the reins? Enter Joyce Hagan.
My first arts position in Atlantic City was in the year 2000. I became the executive director of the Garden Pier Art Center, and I worked there for 5 years. It was a free art gallery on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, and we had a monthly rotation of 3 galleries worth of art. Sometimes the whole space was devoted to one artist or one group of artists. Sometimes there were 3 different artists represented within the space. It was a lot to manage. It was indeed a tourism site because it was on the boardwalk. And it was really hard for me to get Atlantic City residents to come in and enjoy the artwork that was there, even though we did a lot of programming that was related to Atlantic City.
Under Joyce's leadership, in 2003, the Art Center celebrated its milestone 50th anniversary, 5 decades of bringing fine art to the masses in Atlantic City. However, change was on the horizon in a big way. There were talks of creating an arts district in the Ducktown neighborhood. With Boardwalk Hall, The Walk, and Dante Hall all within walking distance, Ducktown seemed like a very likely place to start. The only question is what would happen to Garden Pier? As the issue from its inception, the uptown location put it just slightly out of reach for visitors, and even more so with the presence of casinos. With the building of the Rebel Casino directly across the boardwalk, the future of the pier seemed uncertain. At the same time, City Councilman and activist Kaleem Shabazz took over the executive director role.
The board was looking for someone to be an interim director. The Art Center is someplace that should be community-focused and community-based and be welcoming to everyone in the community. It should be a place, I said, if my memory serves me correctly, it should be a place that starting artists can get a platform. It should be a place that the general public feels comfortable coming in and viewing art. And it should be a place that also brings established artists in for shows. So I got the position, and I started off trying to do that, trying to bring in new artists of color. I had the Atlantic City Links. They had started, and we continued having their art show there at the Art Center, their Black History Art Show. I started having some things on the weekends with a gentleman named Tyrone Hart, who started teaching youngsters how to draw and how to paint. Nastasia Davis, I think one of the first shows she had as a photographer, photojournalist I gave her, and several other artists of color we were able to bring in and have them put on their shows and have receptions.
Then, in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis and Hurricane Sandy in 2012, it all hit a fever pitch. In the calendar year of 2014, 4 casinos, the Atlantic Club, Showboat, Revel, and Trump Plaza all closed, putting over 8,000 Atlantic County residents out of work.
So that was a time when it was not looking good for the Arts Center, for the art community in general, and really people were so concerned with survival that other concerns sort of went to the back seat. And I think that was the atmosphere, the prevailing atmosphere. I think people were really concerned about what the future of Atlantic City would be.
There were a lot of energies devoted to the question of what could Atlantic City offer tourists that wasn't casinos. And there were a lot of studies done and a lot of impact studies and a lot of conversations trying to come up with what did other cities have that tourists flocked to, that Atlantic City could add to the casino and hospitality industry that would help us keep our tourism business and our tourism numbers as successful for the city.
In 2013, the Boardwalk Art Show was revitalized and a 3D chalk art festival took place in the fall. The plans of making Ducktown an official art hub were now starting to materialize, with the opening of the Noise Art Garage that same year. This space also houses the African American Heritage Museum, as well as various studios and spaces in which artists can display and sell their work. Around that same time, the CRDA and the Atlantic City Alliance committed over $8 million over a 5-year period to New York-based art consultant Lance Fung and his company Fung Collaboratives to create art parks in various areas of the city. The Artlantic Park stood on the site of what used to be the Sands Casino Hotel. The Sands was imploded in 2007 in order to make way for the construction of a newer Las Vegas-style casino, which never came to be. When an art park was developed there instead, as opposed to the promised structure that would create jobs in the local economy, it was met with anger by many residents.
The thought was that building those major public artworks on the East Coast would attract tourists who had arts interests, and that we could then get them into the casinos and the other hospitality entities and rebuild our tourism business that way. It didn't really work. Neither of those projects is still in the city, and there's a lot of bad feelings about how that money was invested and the fact that we have nothing to show for it still.
Then, after 60 years in the community, and with little fanfare, the Atlantic City Arts Center at Garden Pier closed its doors permanently. Years of weather, wear and tear, as well as financial difficulties all played a part in the center's closing.
By being older, when you have weather and different conditions, if you don't have a constant replenishing of the boardwalk and upkeep, sometimes it falls into disrepair. And we had a couple storms and serious damage to the boardwalk, and it became really a safety issue in terms of having people come there, so the boardwalk had to close.
The impact of the Atlantic City Arts Center in the community was profound. For a great number of the area's local artists, this was the place that they displayed their work for the first time ever.
Flip it.
I think about 2013, an Atlantic City resident whose name is Daryl Bultheis decided he'd like to start an arts organization in Atlantic City.
Our founder, Daryl Bultheis, was coming from Santa Barbara, found love, and moved to Atlantic City, and had really wanted to bring that kind of vibrant celebration of arts and culture that he had seen where he was living to Atlantic City, and kind of bounded together a group of folks that knew the value in public arts transforming cities.
He and I had a conversation in 2015, and I said that I felt that it was a time in my life to be able to lead an organization like that for Atlantic City, that I'd be willing to be a volunteer executive director and see what we could do if he was willing to let me take charge of the organization.
And it started from that. It started from smaller community events. Our program, Talk About AC, was born out of a way to combat a lot of the negative stereotypes and bad news about Atlantic City, that it was dirty, that it was dangerous, and we started just with chalk.
There were a lot of challenges to getting the Arts Foundation started in the early days.
I know that it was a lot harder in the beginning. I know that when our mural program was starting in 2017, we were begging people to let us use their walls.
We really had to work just to convince people that an arts organization could be of value in the city.
And people were like, well, what do you mean you're gonna paint my wall? Like, I don't want whatever you're putting on my wall. And so it was a struggle for a while until, little by little, people started seeing the change in the community and the facades and the buildings, the attention that these businesses were getting, and that this is actually a driver for meaningful change for good. And it's grown in leaps and bounds from there.
Looking at projects that other cities were doing, and I went to have a Reiki massage. And while I was having the Reiki massage, this vision of being able to create what eventually became Arteriors, to take an empty space in Atlantic City, get the landlord to agree to my cockamamie idea to allow artists to build an art installation inside the building, to be able to publicize it. The publicity would benefit the artists who had the art in the building, but it would also call attention to the building and show that the building was ready for someone to purchase or come in and build a business in there. It seemed to me to be the synergy of arts and economic development that everybody wanted for this city. Got up from the table and drove to the location. The location couldn't have been more dismal. It was totally without electricity. It was filthy and filled with all kinds of leftover detritus from a pizza shop that had been in there before. And what I saw, of course, initially was not all of that stuff, but all of the artist installations that I had hoped would be in there. So I said, you know what? We're gonna do this.
It being a candy factory, of course, my brain went immediately to Willy Wonka. So I wanted to add elements of Willy Wonka meets Atlantic City nightlife. So that's kind of where the black light, you know, kind of neon vibe came from with that. And of course the stairwell is dark, so what better place to have a black lit art installation.
So Mr. Colazzo ran electricity for us. It was the middle of August. It was crazy hot. We barely had any light. We had to go to other businesses on the street to use the bathroom and to wash paintbrushes. But we created what now is 10 times program that is very successful now for the Arts Foundation and for the city and for the regional artists who are participating in the program.
So my experience with the James Candy Arterier exhibition was really fun. This piece was actually part of the exhibition. It was one of the last pieces. But it was actually after I designed like the whole layout of what I wanted to do that I even decided to put this piece in. So my idea for the James Candy installation was definitely focusing on the nostalgia factor of it. Each artist kind of tied that in one way or another, which I think really helped with the overall experience of it, whether they talked about the Tooth Fairy or whether they talked about like Atlantic City nostalgia.
and we'll bring in a group of artists and they'll have 2 weeks to use whatever was left behind and transform it into an immersive art exhibition. It's grown to host from the beginning maybe 5 to 8 to 10 artists to 20 to 21 to 23 to 25, and it's grown and grown. And our Interiors sees about 500 to 800 visitors each time it runs. Really grown to be very popular programs, and they've each rendition, it changes a little bit and it gets a little bit better and it gets a little bit more unique in whatever's going on that year. But the cool thing about our Interiors is you're never going to see the same thing twice. The idea is the same, but it's always built around whatever space we have. And each space is kind of special and unique in that way. So we'll actually be celebrating our 10th Interiors this coming November in the old James Taffy factory, which is the oldest business in Atlantic City. We have a 103-year-old building.
No way.
It was something I will absolutely never forget.
So my experience with the James Candy Arterier exhibition was really fun.
It ended up being like the greatest thing. Like, I met all these artists, and that was like a magical experience. That Arterier thing. Yeah, I thought that was like total magic.
Seeing everybody's different styles come together and create such a beautiful atmosphere, it completely transformed the place in 2 weeks.
Once that level of appreciation happens, then people realize there's a need to be filled. Because once you appreciate it and you don't have it, then you have to do something, encourage someone else or do something yourself to be able to fill that need. But now there's an audience for it.
By the time of making this documentary, in these 48 blocks, it is more than 99 murals. Artists come from far and wide to display their talents and their history to these Atlantic City streets. At night, the art brings a vibrant scene that shows the excitement of the city. Everywhere down to the skate park is loaded with art. Or the planners at Planners. The barbershops, schools, the business offices, and even at the park. The art thrives in all 4 seasons. Winter, spring, summer and fall. Everywhere you turn is a display of diversity, engulfing so many different cultures, beliefs, ideas, and history. The artists supply the city with warmth, inspiration, glory, positive energy, beauty, and imagination. These muralists are fantastic at what they do.
I hope that when my life ends, I would have added a little beauty, perception, and quality for those who follow. 20th century artist Jacob Lawrence was born in Atlantic City's 3rd Ward on September 17, 1917. Known for his famous work, The Migration of the Negro, the time was long overdue for his work to be honored right here in his hometown. Local artist Valeria Marcus, with the help of Chanel Renee, John Morris, and Kenny Lazon Falk, made it a personal mission to ensure his artistry would do just that.
started pushing this mural with the Atlantic City Arts Foundation that I've been a volunteer with from the beginning of 2015. It was on the agenda, and then the pandemic hit. And we supposed to have a fundraiser the following year, and that didn't happen. So I decided, let me see this year, I hit new people in charge of the Atlantic City Arts Foundation. I sent them an email why Jacob Lawrence mural needs to be done in Atlantic City. Number one, he's the first artist who painted history. Number two, he's from Atlantic City. He should have been honored a long time ago. And then we had a concept how we wanted to get Jacob Lawrence his work. It's all about Jacob. Basically wanted to kind of tell his life, who he was, use his colors, primary colors. He liked bold colors, and he used a little black and brown. But he basically, as you can see, Jacob loved bright colors, reds, the yellows, and the blues. That was his palette that he started with. So we did it. The three artists that were chosen, they represented Jacob and his art. I think they did a great job.
Kelly Prevard takes us through her journey of creating an iconic mural at City Hall, honoring the rich history of her hometown.
One of my most recent pieces that I did in Atlantic City is on the 7th floor, the top floor of City Hall. It's called Shine on Atlantic City. And what I really want that mural to be was a celebration of the rich history of Atlantic City. Honestly, celebrating the past, present, and the future of Atlantic City. The one thing that I love about this community is it does have a great long history of greatness. Honor that, and I just felt like it's so cool that I got to do that.
So when you bring artwork, public artwork, into a neighborhood, into a place like Atlantic City, a lot of the things that you notice with the arts and urban areas or blighted areas is people will put up museums, galleries, things like that, and the general community feels like it's not for them. They feel uncomfortable going inside. There's a separation. By putting the artwork directly in communities, in people's neighborhoods, on housing authority buildings, in school districts, working with the residents of the area to create the artwork that they're seeing every day and are able to identify with. It creates a sense of ownership and empowerment. It bolsters city pride. Not only are we creating artwork that we are directly saying this is for you, but it's also in a sense by you.
Christian Korea with John Morris and Nick Randazzo discussed their process of creating a mural for the newly opened Sweet Leaf AC dispensary.
So the concept of the mural was they wanted to do a mix of things Atlantic City that they liked, like growing up and coming down here when they were kids, and then also like something related to marijuana, but you can't really do marijuana stuff. Like you're not allowed to do certain things. There's a lot of weird laws around marijuana. So it's like, how do we get like iconic people? The background of it's going to be like green smoke. So it's like, how do you kind of hint at, hey, you know, Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg, if you're going to have two people that smoke weed, those are the two you might want on the wall. So it's like, how do you not be overt about it, but also let people know, like, hey, this might be a place to get weed. So the concept itself, so how we came up with the concept was there was a lot of different iterations, but it's like you kind of figure out the elements that you want, and then you just kind of plug and play it in Photoshop, so you get something visually appealing and still makes sense. So it's not like completely coherent. It's a bunch of random shit, but I think it looks nice, so I'm happy with it.
So 48 Blocks AC has become our flagship program. Most people know us for 48 Blocks. And it began in 2017 with the idea that, Atlantic City is 48 blocks long. We wanted to celebrate arts and culture throughout the 48 blocks of Atlantic City. And we were going to create this weekend-long festival. It was going to be 48 blocks, 48 creative projects for and by the community for 48 hours. It was going to be a weekend-long festival. And this was at the time with mainly volunteers. There was one paid staff member, a couple consultants, not a lot of manpower, and they had thought, okay, well maybe 48 hours, 2 days is too ambitious, let's scale it down and just do 1 day. And they opened it up to the community, and they ended up with 109 projects that year. And the program has kind of grown from that. It's grown to encompass the mural program, which is now the largest in Atlantic City with about 100 murals all over the Atlantic City. It's also grown to encompass the Painted Adirondack Chair and Planter Box program that we have in partnership with CRDA Special Improvement Division. And it's grown to become a weekend festival in all. So each year we will do it a little bit differently. It's still something that's growing and ever changing, just like Atlantic City is growing and ever changing. But it's become kind of this big conglomerate of all of our summer programming. We do the weekend festival, we do pop-up events, we do mural week, where we'll do, for the course of 1 week, we'll do 4 or 5 different murals all over the city that people can tour and see. And we'll have the Adirondack chairs. And it's become this big kind of summer-long celebration of arts and culture throughout the city.
Organizations such as South Jersey Cultural Alliance, among many others, work tirelessly to create artistic community and provide much-needed resources to artists locally.
I think, SJCA's role in the cultural community here is to help connect everyone together so that they can collaborate, pool their resources, and really showcase what South Jersey is, which is a fabric that's woven from multiple threads of history and art and culture.
Second Saturdays is a program that is held in Midtown on the second Saturday of every month that aims to provide the community with arts programming.
So Second Saturdays was a new program for SJCA last year. We started to work in conjunction with Atlantic Care and their Midtown Redevelopment Corporation funding, and they wanted to have arts and culture programming for the Midtown neighborhood every month of the year. So we decided Second Saturdays was going to be the event. We bring artists and history folks and art activities and performances and opportunities for the neighborhood folks to come and get their hands in to illustration and some clay and some found object work, and just really understand arts and culture and the resources that are available here to them locally.
Since 2016, there's been a resurgence of community and opportunity for the arts in and around Atlantic City that didn't necessarily exist as much before. These artists talk about how that's directly impacted them.
There's a lot of organizations in Atlantic City that do art, and they are just a piece of what art is in Atlantic City. And that's beautiful because every piece adds to the overall fabric and the beauty of what it means to be a thriving community.
So now, again, we have the Atlantic City Arts Commission, which I'm a part of. We're actually getting ready to sponsor a couple of art shows and contests. You have the Atlantic City Arts Foundation, which has been doing some great work with regards to getting murals done. They do Talk About Atlantic City. They do the Arts Festival 48 Blocks every year. And then you have the Union Hall Arts venue with Zach, who is giving artists opportunities. And of course, you have the apex of arts in the area right now, which is the Noise Arts Garage.
I think my first official exhibit was with the Noise Art Garage. It was like my debut, and it was just like such a big moment.
I worked at the Noise Arts Garage of Stockton University, and I was just able to meet a lot of artists, kind of get involved with some of the artists doing exhibitions there, local artists selling art in the gift shop. And I just remember working there and just like being really excited and like yearning to get to be a part of that community.
So these venues weren't available 15, 20 years ago. Now the thing that's scary is as amazing as Kelly Prevart is as a visual artist, 15, 20, 30 years ago, she would just be stockpiling art in her garage, or she would have to totally leave the area and go to Philadelphia, New York, or North Jersey to get any kind of burn or any kind of traction.
And I think for me as an artist, one of the reasons why I had to expand is because I found that it was time for me to individualize myself as an artist who's going to be able to sustain herself and is going to be able to reach her ultimate dreams of becoming a world famous artist, you know. I said that I wanted to do that as a kid, and it's something that I really want to come true.
I felt like, you know, me being an artist, it felt very, like I just couldn't find my people. So I just couldn't find like a demographic of people where I could relate to, and that were like, that new artist where like I can go somewhere and it's a place where I can grow in my art. I really had to like dig, like I had to go out to Philly. I was lucky to go to Philly in high school to like learn and actually take art seriously.
And I just felt like every time that I've showcased my work, my community has always just held me up and just poured out love for me and support for doing the things that I love. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm just glad that I continue to get support as I travel the world.
The possibilities and the engagements that I've had in Atlantic City, there's a whole long list. The opportunities to meet people, to engage with others, be a part of growing communities, and change a community that was not doing so well before, to see it grow and flourish. That's a beautiful thing. So this is my biggest contribution in the city so far.
Husband and wife duo Charles and Randy Barbin own and operate Dunes Art Gallery in nearby Brigantine. Each of them have left their own individual lasting marks on the Atlantic City art scene, as well as doing so as a team.
So Dunes, you know, we are a gallery, but we have, whenever we have artists, we try to have openings. So we have events where we have refreshments and display the artist's work. We have a back area that we utilize. We have seating, you know, what else do we do? You know, if we have murals, we have dedications. So there's always some stuff happening. We try to always have people coming to the gallery, even if, because sometimes people, like he said earlier, sometimes people don't want to stop into a gallery. They're a little intimidated by galleries. So to have these events and just inviting people that may normally not come in still gives that exposure. And then, you know,
yeah, put a little ad in the local paper, and, you know, like let people know that, you know, it's a welcoming environment.
Speaking of welcoming environments, Stories of AC provides just that for artists locally. Monthly artist meetups foster spaces for creativity, open communication, and connection to flourish.
In a nutshell, Stories of Atlantic City is a collaborative project that works with Stockton University, works with the City of Atlantic City, and tons of other organizations in the city to define multiple different routes to amplify the voices of the people of Atlantic City. Creating the artist meetup came into my lap because we were talking about needs. We were talking about what it looks like to cover the arts in Atlantic City, whether or not that's just doing cover pieces of other people's arts, or if it's finding a way to holistically provide resources for artists to engage with each other.
South Jersey artist Kamisha Turner describes her move from Seattle, Washington to New Jersey, and how being a part of the Atlantic City art scene has impacted her.
You know, it was such a huge move to, uproot my family from the West Coast to the East Coast, but it's been a game changer and I love it. It's been an amazing feeling that I am already feeling so cared for and loved by the art community. I don't know everybody yet, I was lucky and blessed enough to be chosen as the South Jersey Cultural Alliance Fellow for 2023. So that boosted my confidence for sure. And then joining Atlantic City Stories has been great, and getting to meet new people and learning about these new opportunities, doing this documentary. It's a blessing.
I've been seeing people more bursting and sprouting to bring an art community here, and like, hey, New Jerseyans and South Jersey do art, and we're here. It's just, no one looks for us here. So I think that's something I'm very excited to see and like be a part of. And yes.
Present thoughts on the AC art scene.
AC has changed artistically in the last several years in a magnificent way.
The mural program has just exploded. It is all over the city. We have outstanding murals and more to come. It's getting ready to be a gigantic one, I think on a 14-story building in the inlet. And I think people are really taking to the whole concept of murals.
People appreciate the art. Everywhere I go, from the church to walking in the drugstore, to neighbors, teenagers, everyone loves the murals, loves the arts.
Atlantic City has more resources for artists of all kinds than they've ever had in my lifetime. But I would say for artists of color, we still have ways to go to finding enough room for our own space.
Seeing the community come out just to really, really immerse themselves in arts and culture it gives you hope that the city can really make a comeback and show the world that it's something so much more than what they see in the news and the clips of the bad things that the media tends to focus on.
I think that one thing that could be done to help further the art scene in Atlantic City is to do exactly what a place like this does, is to bring the artists together. And also just helping out one another. One of the things that I like to do in my spare time is I'm always creating art. And if there's a need somewhere in the Atlantic County community where someone, whether it's they're sick or if they're in financial need in some way and they're throwing a benefit, I like to be able to give what I can, and what I can do is make art for them. So I do a lot of event posters for things like that. I do a lot of artwork, whether it's for logos or tables or anything like that, to benefit communities here in Atlantic County and Atlantic City.
The real story here is the people that are rebuilding and renewing the city and reviving it through arts and culture. And I think it's inspiring.
I'm proud to say that Atlantic City has a seriously established comic book publisher here that is actually getting recognition worldwide. So, that's something that wasn't happening when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was doing comic books on notebook paper and folding them in half and then putting the staple in the middle. And to be honest, I actually kind of miss being able to produce comic books that way.
When I took the helm of this organization 9 years ago, in June of 2015, I really, in my heart, believed that Atlantic City needed an arts organization like I had in my head. And so I wouldn't have gone into it had I not believed it would be what it is today.
The past is gone. Now is the future.
In the future, in the Atlantic City art scene, I hope to just be able to drive by every building and have some kind of art on there. I don't care if it's going to be like on the streets, if it's going to be on the walls or signs, and anything possible. Just a colorful drive is a beautiful thing. It's fun, it's vibrant. I think it just livens the whole city up.
See more music in Atlantic City. I'd love to see like jazz come back in Atlantic City and Buddy Go doing jazz
series of my own where I create these very complex characters and have very varying backstories, and I really like to show the world that and inspire other people to want to make their own characters and lead their own stories as well.
The past
I
is
would
gone.
believe the future of Atlantic City looks like in an artist lens is
The past
definitely
is gone.
seeing the good of Atlantic City. I think art is really important because it
Now
allows
is the
us to
future.
see the human experience. It allows us to relate to each other, to know each other more, and I think it will allow Atlantic City to be seen for more than just that.
The past is
I would
gone.
like the Arts Foundation to be
Now
able
is the
to
future.
putting Atlantic City on the map as not only a destination for tourists to come for arts and culture, but a place for artists to want to live and create careers and to be able to establish careers.
Now is the future.
Help one another, you know, to keep everybody, you know, engaged and to you know, inspire one another. That's really what it's all about. So that's definitely the way that Atlantic City can continue moving forward and being a beacon and a place for where art thrives.
So I'm very, very excited to see what the future brings. I'm loving the art that I'm seeing so far. There's so many talented people here, and I'm really, really happy to be a part of it.
That the art scene in Atlantic City is going to be booming soon. Like it's going to be really big, and a lot of people are going to be coming here and enjoying the scene even more so with families and kids. And it will be a great thing for little kids to see what they can become.
But if I had a magic wand and I had my wish, there would be 2 arts districts in Atlantic City. There would be one over by the Noise Museum in Ducktown with museums and art galleries, and you know, we would finally do something with that stage at Dante Hall. And if I had a magic wand, I would buy the old Gordon's Alley property. I would buy all of those buildings and turn that into a arts district for people on the side of town where I grew up.
It can't just be art served up on a silver platter. It has to be art as a part of life. So art as a part of an essential service. So art as a part of food distribution. Art as a part of education. Art as a part of senior services. Art as a part of wellness. Art as a part of, you know, private business and nonprofit, you know, crossover.
I hope that it not only exposes people to art that maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity. It's like one of the only exhibit spaces in this area. But I hope that people also get experiential art experience, whether that's through our events or programming. I hope that they're able to learn new art methods.
The Boardwalk Art Show, I believe that we should bring that back. I think that is something that not only would appeal to artists, I think would appeal to the broader tourism segment and also to residents. I think that's something that we could make, again, Atlantic City's signature event.
You have a art gallery in every ward. That would be nice. Have events every Friday, Saturday for the community, anyone who wants to come offshore. I think we should have more programs for artists to earn money, real money, not a stipend, a nice fee. And I would like to see the city of Atlantic City create an art department for the city like Philadelphia, a mural, not just a mural program, but an art program, and get someone to run it. And hire local artists and local employees to run a whole office department for arts.
A couple of years back, I traveled out to Miami, Florida. I was blown away by this one area of the city in particular, called Woodwood. Everywhere you looked, on every wall, every storefront, were beautifully stylized graffiti murals. Creative designs fully encompassed that entire area of the city, and at night, they were illuminated by neon lights that almost seemed to make the murals dance off the walls. I may be romanticizing it a bit, but it made me feel inspired. How a city can fully embrace the art community so wholeheartedly. That's what I want to see in Atlantic City's future. It's already on its way, but I hope to see it grow to that next level.
I envision every building every home, every level, every right, cover, and a mesmerizing display of art, where Atlantic City is colorful and lit, that you get engulfed in the city's beauty and glory. Also, our murals on display shows the dream of never stop dreaming. The future has endless possibilities, but with the effort of our artists and the rise of our art scene, Atlantic City will be spectacular.
What does the future of the arts in AC represent to me? Well, it means a place where kids that are coming up have a safe space to explore their creativity in all its forms. But there are so many other avenues where kids could develop their creative side that would literally transfer into every other area of life. I mean, we could be looking at future artists, writers, poets, musicians, so on and so forth. Creating a space where it's cool to dream big and think outside the box. That's my hope for the future.
This deep